everyone. Thank you for listening and then tuning in another exciting IchibanTalk. And today we have a guest from Los Angeles, California. He is a Hollywood TV studio computer engineer and a recording artist. Did I say recording artist? Yes, singer. His band name is Starfire. And here comes my friend, デーレンロンバードさん。
辰巳さん、ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございます。Well, yeah, I never mentioned that he is learning Japanese. Probably his Japanese and writing, speaking is much better than me. So I know this already. I don't know. He's using the Google the translation, but he's writing in a texting. DM, it's perfect. Yeah. So can you introduce yourself in Japanese a little bit?
Yes, I can. 皆さん、はじめまして。ロサンゼルスのロンバルデーレンと申します。40歳です。アメリカ人ですけど、20年以上に日本にとっても興味があります。実は2025年に大阪に住むつもりです。ですから、日本語が上手になりたいんですが、どうぞよろしくお願いします。
素晴らしいですね。パチパチパチパチパチパチ。ということで、こちらにもありますけれども、デーレンさんにぜひ連絡したい方は、Twitter. He's doing a Twitter, so at the dating. It's very simple, so that you can just reach him out too. So anyway, let's find out as your engineer life and the musician life. And I forgot about that. This is a big thing. Darren's mom is having a birthday today. So maybe you want to wish her as a happy birthday?
Yes. Happy birthday to my mom. Today she is 61 years old. 母は今日は母お誕生日おめでとうございます。61歳です。
若いお母さんですね。She's still young. Yes. And then also there's the happy birthday. The Darren's mom. And then yes. Well, she's not in LA, correct?
Yes, she lives on the East Coast of the United States now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So 3 hours ahead.
That's right.
Right. Okay.
Already 1 o'clock p.m. where she lives.
That's right. So tell me about your childhood. I'm noticed that you were in LA, Los Angeles, California right now. So yeah, just let's find out.
Yes, right now I live in the San Fernando Valley near Burbank, but I was born and raised in Los Angeles near the University of Southern California, where I grew up with one younger brother, and we were both homeschooled. I myself was greatly influenced by my father, who was also a computer programmer and a guitarist.
Oh, wow. Wow. So I think you mentioned the guitarist things that happened to your grandpa too?
That's right. I am a 4th generation guitarist. Not only do I play and my father, but his father, my grandfather Charles, was a guitarist, and his father Lucien Lombard was also a guitar player as well. So about 100 years of musical history in the family.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there's the music family and then technology family sounds like a computer programmer, right? Isn't that you mentioned a computer programmer?
That's right. I was very fascinated by the technology. My father spent many hours, working away on the computer ever since I was very, very young. I think I was 3 years old when he brought home our first computer. And my interest really grew tremendously when he one day connected one of our computers to a telephone line with a modem. and called a computer in Chicago. I was used to seeing, text and graphics pictures appearing on the screen because of what the software was doing, either from a floppy disk or, if you can believe this, from a cassette tape. A long time ago, you used to be able to save and load computer programs from cassette tapes. And so, we played games, and, I saw things on the computer all the time from the one machine sitting in front of me. But that day was the first day that I had seen text coming from not that computer, but from another computer in a faraway city over the telephone line. And I knew on that day, I was just 7 years old, that this technology, the ability to network two or more computers together, would change the world. And so I really wanted to be a part of that, which is how I ended up doing it for a living.
Wow. So does it, can you imagine that we live without internet now? That time? I mean, like, who never guessed this kind of thing was happening,
It was
right?
like a different world. I think of the time before the internet the way we all think of the time before cars, that everyone got around on horseback. It's like none of us could imagine doing that today. And so now in the 21st century, none of us could imagine, banking or airline reservations without.
I remember. Well, that was what year was it? So when you were young?
Well, I started to see this technology in 1987.
1987,
But
okay. Because I try to think that my early 90s, I think my friend in Georgia, he told me, just Tatsumi, World Wide Web, right? WWW, they gonna take it over. And like it is, wow, what's going on? So since then, they just keep going, and then everybody is a tech savvy right now, right? That's what I should say. So
it's very
right. So when you're growing up in LA, and then what is like an impression of Japan?
Well, as you might already know, as most people probably already know, Los Angeles, like New York City, is a very international city as far as American towns go. We have people living here from all over the world, probably more so in New York than even in Los Angeles, where there's primarily people of Hispanic descent living here who are not from the United States. However, we also have a very large Asian community here. We have an extremely large Koreatown. So meeting people of Asian descent is something that I became familiar with ever since I was in my very early teens. But I also had the good fortune of being able to meet people who are from Japan, both those who grew up in Los Angeles, so they're basically Americans with Japanese last names, but also people who were born and raised in Japan, visiting here, perhaps family or as tourists. And my impression was very favorable. I was very, very surprised and impressed by how curious and kind most of the people I met who are from Japan were and continue to be. It's very interesting. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. One of the things that I can tell you about this town is that at the same time, I have a lot of pride in our history, the entertainment industry here with, motion pictures and obviously our rich music here, heritage here. It's a difficult town to get along in because people are very much so into themselves and their own lives. And so walk down the street and encounter people, you're not going to get a friendly hi, hello, how are you? People don't tend to really introduce themselves to you on the street the way that they do in some other towns. You had mentioned Georgia, for example. When I had visited Atlanta, people commonly will approach you and say, hi, good morning, as though they know you, even though they're a total stranger. In Los Angeles, they just don't do that. So when I ran into people who are from Japan, and from time to time, they'll ask me, how did you, learn about B show, or why do you like this food? They ask me questions, and I always walk away from the experience feeling really, really special.
Okay. So, do you remember the first Japanese person to talk with? The moment?
Oh, that's a very good question. Because my experiences between people that I've met in real life and people that I've seen on TV are kind of mixed up. I remember the very first Japanese person I ever saw on television. They were a TV news broadcaster by the name of Trisha Toyota.
Yes, I remember. Is it
Yeah.
KTLA? No.
She
KCAL?
was, I
Maybe
remember,
KCAL.
I remember from KCBS,
Okay.
actually, Channel 2,
Okay. Yeah, I
CBS
remember
Los
her.
Angeles.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I remember thinking, wow, she's gorgeous. Again, I was, very, as a child, the whole world is very interesting to you at that point. So I really, enjoyed, seeing somebody different, from myself and everybody else. But somebody who actually was from Japan that I had met in real life, I would say I have come across probably, it's kind of funny. So in 1998, I was spending a lot of time in Little Tokyo, in downtown Los Angeles. And the reason was because I wanted to rent television programs that were only available in Japan. And at the time, being able to watch Japanese television in Los Angeles was not easy. We did have one TV station, KUSI,
Yeah, I
I
remember
think it
that.
was.
Channel
And
56.
they would,
Yes.
right, and they would play all kinds of overseas programming, Korean, I
Yeah.
think Vietnam point, and also Japanese. But it was maybe one or two programs. I think maybe it was a
Yeah.
NHK program. I wanted to watch Tokusatsu, in particular Super Sentai. There was a program that I was interested in at the time called Ginga Sen, or excuse me, Seiju Sentai Gingaman. Yeah, what is it? Galaxy Squadron, or I keep saying that wrong. It came after Denji Sentai Mega Ranger, Electronic Squadron Mega Ranger. And so anyway, I found out that they were on VHS cassette for rent at this video
Right.
rental store in downtown Los Angeles. And so the very first time that I actually met somebody who was born and raised in Japan, they happened to be from Fukuoka, was the store employee, the tenny, and she was very surprised to see me because all of her customers are Japanese. But I came and I said, yes, I would like to write this program, and she asked me, oh, how did you come to know of this program? And I was like, well, you see, I used to watch Power Rangers, and I told my story. And again, remember that she was very, very kind and very curious. And again, I walked away with a very big smile, feeling very, very happy and special.
That's nice. That's nice to hear all the stories. I think I went to the rental video store probably. It's nearby, I think, Mitsuwa, downtown LA. Is it correct?
I think so. That's exactly right. I remember that too as well.
So you went to Japan. So please tell me how did you decide to go to Japan? That's like a big decision to the American peoples, especially language is different. So, and then how long did you go to Japan too? So yeah, tell me two things.
Yeah, so I first visited Japan, excuse me, in the year 2006. It was the first of three visits, and each visit I stayed for, well, the first visit was for 6 days, and my second visit was for 10 days, I think it was. It was 10 years later in 2016, too long. Uh, I wanted to come back sooner, but very busy. But and then after that, I came back to Japan in 2019 and visited for let's see, I think it was 9 days. So unfortunately, each of my trips were short, but very, very memorable. And why I decided to go, as I mentioned in my introduction, I have been interested in Japan for over 20 years. It's an interesting story because most Americans, in my experience, become interested in Japan are usually fascinated by like a handful of things. Usually it's anime. Sometimes it's the video games. On occasion, it's I think music, or maybe they met someone from Japan, or they had to go to Japan for work, their job. And when they arrived, they saw the country and they became very, very fascinated. They were like, "Oh wow, this place is very interesting," and so they wanted to see, like the bamboo forest in Kyoto, or visit the large Buddha statue in Nara, all of the very fine cultural things there are to see in Japan. My experience was pretty different. I personally am more, I'm a big fan of America, and I personally wanted to travel the United States more than other countries. I've been to Canada, Mexico, the United Kingdom, France, and I think those are all the countries I've been to. And they were great experiences, but
yeah, of
I
course.
America.
What is it? 50
But
states? That's a lot of states.
It's a big country to explore, right?
I mean, between Hawaii and New York is 6 hours different. If you want to fly from Hawaii to New York, probably 9 hours, at least 9 hours, maybe 10 hours. I mean, it's gigantic. The country.
That's right, and each state has its own culture, and it's very. So I thought, maybe I would just travel the United States, but the reason that I went to Japan was because once every 1 or 2 years, I kept running into things about Japan that I loved. And so, for example, in the 1980s, of course, I was seeing, things like Voltron and other programs that were actually Japanese anime, but, were dubbed into English. And I thought, wow, this is really great. Where did it come from? Oh, it came from Japan. A few years later, I encountered Power Rangers. The show was not that good, but the action scenes that were from Japan were amazing. So I asked, hey, where did this come from? Oh, it came from Japan. And over the years, more things like this were happening. I was running into food I really liked. I was like, oh, what is this? Oh, it's katsudon. Oh, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. Where did it come from? And then I would meet people from, Tokyo or Nagoya or Sapporo, and they were the nicest people I've ever met. I had a Japanese roommate by accident in 2005. I posted English ad, and this gentleman from Tokyo, originally from Niigata, wanted to live in the United States to improve his English, and so he moved in with me. Years and years later, he and I are still friends. And so between the music and the TV shows, the people, the food, I thought to myself, actually in 1998, I made the decision, I am going to go to Japan. I have to see this country. This place seems amazing. And so finally, when I went in 2006, the place absolutely took my breath away. Again, the people are just the greatest. And I noticed there is a lot of beauty, not only just in the natural landscape, because the country is gorgeous, but also the architecture, the classic architecture and the modern architecture. It's just so great. But my number one favorite thing is the attention to detail, even in the smallest things. whether it's a sign, a button, an appliance. There's a lot of attention and elegance in even smallest details in just about everything. You can go to the bathroom and find elegant things the way that it's all put
You said a
together.
bathroom? Are you
And
talking about
it was just
like a washlet? They're gonna clean you out
yeah.
with a nice
And the
warm
tub,
water,
it-
not
that-
the cold water.
It was とても便利だと
Oh,
思います。
I
And-
got addicted. I tried to find us in the washlet Toto here, but well, I get used with the toilet paper culture. But I mean, like everywhere you go in Japan, they're gonna wash you out. Yes.
And the tub, you could set the temperature. So I tried it, set it to 41 Celsius, and it was perfect. And that sort of thing made it impossible for me to not fall in love.
I've got to tell you. So you can remember. I think that's your talent. I really think so. Do you remember what day you landed in Narita Airport in the first time?
Yes, let's see here. I do, because it was actually near a friend's birthday. But the day I landed in, also I kept a journal the whole time. I have a very funny story about how I first came to Japan, because it was actually a strange experience. But I landed on October the 6th.
See, everybody,
of
I
2006.
cannot even think about it. What did I eat yesterday? Or I don't know. Maybe this is it. Maybe so you can remember the 3 days ago. What did you eat for the lunch? Or
That's what's interesting, because I can't remember that, but I remember
man.
numbers really well. Like I remember my telephone number from when I was a kid.
what a talent you have.
Well, speaking of my first time landing in Japan, it was very interesting, because there was unfortunately a typhoon just leaving Japan as I was flying in from Los Angeles. Now, that would be a good thing, except it wasn't gone yet. And so what happened was my airplane was circling Tokyo for about an hour and a half. We couldn't land. Finally, we had to divert from Narita new international airport
Oh,
to
wow. The
Haneda.
smaller one.
Now,
Yeah.
the smaller one. Now, here's the problem. In the year 2006, Haneda Airport was not an American. I flew on American Airlines that day. And American Airlines at that time did not fly to Haneda.
Yeah, I remember.
So if we landed there, we would have to essentially wait, get more jet fuel, and then fly to Narita Airport. Japanese law stated that if the airplane and its passengers are supposed to go to a particular airport, the passengers cannot get off the airplane unless they go to that airport. So we landed in Haneda at like 7:30 p.m. And then we sat on the tarmac for 3 hours waiting for another flight crew to come and for the jet to be refueled. The reason why we needed another flight crew is because American law says that there is a maximum number of hours that a flight crew can work. So our pilots were out of time. They ran out of hours and they couldn't fly anymore. So somehow they had to get off. Well, no, they didn't get off the airplane. They went to crew rest. Another crew was driven on the ground from Narita Airport to Haneda Airport to then get on our plane and fly
just
30
30
minutes back
minutes.
to Narita.
Wow.
It's a
So
3-minute
you got stuck in
flight.
an airplane like 14 hours at least minimum.
Yes, we didn't take off from Haneda Airport until 11:50
My God.
p.m.
So you left probably morning, right, in LA? Day before?
Yes, in Los Angeles. That's right. In Los Angeles, we departed from Terminal 4 at LAX.
Did you
at
hear
10
everybody?
a.m.
Did you hear the Terminal 4? I don't remember anything like this. Okay. Okay.
It was a memorable day. It was
Okay,
a
keep
very
going.
memorable. I mean, it was so funny because I thought it was going to be memorable because I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, I'm going to Japan. Well, it became memorable because of this ordeal where, we landed in Haneda we were supposed to arrive in Tokyo at 4:30 p.m. or so. We didn't land until 5:55 or something in Haneda. And then, of course, we sat on the tarmac for hours until finally the new crew could come on board. They showed up at 10 or 10:30, and then we finally left Haneda at nearly midnight. We land in Narita at like 12:30 in the morning, but customs, getting off the plane, getting your luggage, all of that. I did not leave the airport until after 3 o'clock in the morning.
Here's another
the
question.
Next day,
Do you remember what did you eat the first meal? What kind of first meal was
yes,
it
I do.
in Japan?
And there's a reason for it. So the problem is because I arrived the next day, my hotel reservation was canceled.
Okay.
And I didn't have a place to stay until the next morning. So I was literally just walking around Ueno looking for places to be with all my luggage. At 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God. But it's great things about in Japan. It's not gonna go away anywhere, right? I mean, it's very safe. This is not like I go to Europe or anything. I hear many things, but right. So it is a safe. That's always.
There was nobody there. There was nobody around at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was in Ueno basically by myself, and then at 5:30 in the morning, McDonald's finally opened. So my very first meal was a sausage egg McMuffin at McDonald's in Ueno.
That's a great choice. That's my favorite, actually.
It was delicious, but I had a very funny experience. I read about this, but I forgot about it. I had taken my food, the wrapper and my tray, over to where the trash was. And then I walked into the trash and realized that it's a little bit different, that there's a different opening for each item that I had. So one for the straw and the lid, another one for the paper, another one for the cup.
Oh my God. Yes. It's
right.
very, very, yes. They have a trash police. I'm not kidding.
But I thought this is good. This is the way it should be, but it just surprised me because I've been awake for 22 hours.
Right. Exactly. Well, anyway, so let me ask you this question. So you landed in Japan, you stayed in Japan, so there's 3-4 times you went to. Do you remember what is a major surprise, or they call a shock, or culture shock we call? Do you remember anything?
Well, from a cultural perspective, I wasn't very badly caught off guard because it's interesting. Like I mentioned briefly before, I have a more difficult time socializing with people from Los Angeles than I do people from Tokyo. And me and my roommate, who was from Tokyo, we talked about that one day. And I think the reason is because when people from Japan see, gaigokujin, a person from another country, they kind of expect or assume that you don't know anything. And so they don't really expect you to understand any of the behavior or the language or anything. So they're very forgiving and kind, and they just kind of look at you. They don't really, my experience, they're not really expecting me to do. So when I introduce myself in Japanese or, bow, or I know the gestures to make, they're very surprised and very happy. They can't believe it. So for me, my experience was good because the little bit that I did learn and have been learning ever since it seems to go a long way. So for me, it wasn't much of a shock as much as it was really just, I felt very happy to know that I got it right, at least a little bit. I'm sure I'm making mistakes, but they're being very nice about it and not telling me. Perhaps the most difficult thing is the best example of this was when I was on my way to the Osaka Shinkansen station to go to Tokyo by way of Nagoya. And my taxi cab driver found, I explained, I told him in Japanese, Osaka Shinkansen na de onegaishimasu. And he said to me, nihongo ga sōzū desu ne. I was like, mara desu. And, ever since then, during the entire 35-minute cab drive to the train station, he spoke to me entirely in Japanese, and not just Japanese, but Kansai dialect.
Oh, that's my language.
That's Japanese. I maybe understood approximately 15 to 20%.
15 to 20%, yes.
Yes, I usually can understand a little bit more, like if I listen to the television, it's like a weather broadcast, I can understand 80 to 90% of what is being said. But he was, again, very casual Osaka Japanese dialect. So I think I heard maybe one word every 40 or 50 seconds that I understood. The good news is that Aizuchi is something I'm good at now. I was if I did understand something, I was able to at least respond with, so desu ka.
That's right. That's a very convenient word. So desu ka.
Very convenient.
So desu ka. Yeah, that's a great one. Okay. So let me ask you this one. So what is the biggest advantage to being a gaijin in living in Japan or staying in Japan?
Well, I would think of it in terms of the biggest benefit. And my experience, my perspective, I would say, is rather unique because, some people like to go to Japan for the same reason they like to go to any other country in the world. They want to be world travelers. They want to be a world citizen. They enjoy learning new languages, and so they like the idea of maybe picking up Russian or German or Italian or something along those lines. And they're not necessarily focused specifically on Japan the way that I have been. And so I think that for the world traveler, it's a great place to say that you've been, and if you can learn the language a little bit, it is a challenge, but I personally think it's a beautiful language for two reasons. Number one, the way that it's logically structured, I think makes a lot of sense. In many ways, it makes more sense than English does to me. And the second thing is that I love the way the language actually sounds. I think that the Japanese language has a very beautiful sound. So if a person is thinking of, a language to learn because they want to say, they want to learn something that sounds elegant and makes a lot of sense, I think the Japanese ends up being a very good language to learn from that perspective. And then, of course, just going there, it's a country with a very long history. So if historians would find it to be a very interesting place because America has been around for about 250, 270 something odd years, whereas the Japanese history stretches back for more than 1,100 years, 1,600 years. So there's things there from like the 7th century that a person can explore, which I think is very fascinating. Most of all, though, I just think that the culture is just really great. The natural respect for other people, and I think this may come from being an island country, that everyone's very close together, and so if they mess things up, you have to live with it. So everyone's very interested in maintaining harmony and peace. It doesn't mean that people don't disagree or don't misbehave, but it's just that there's a much higher importance or focus being placed on, yes, live your life, but do it in a way that doesn't terribly inconvenience another person. Here, that's not really so much of a concern. the trade-off, however, is our sense of self and individualism is a little bit higher. So we're imaginative, original, and creative, which is good. But I like that about Japan, that it's very important that they put on a good, create a good experience for guests. And so people who are from outside of Japan coming from the country, they're going to have a good time because it is kind of the way things are done to make sure that people get a good impression when they come to the country.
All right. So you had a really good memories in Japan too, but you have some funny couple funny moments you might remember, and then if you can, tell us some funny experience in Japan.
Yes, the funniest experience that I ever had in Japan was when I came back to the country for the first time in 10 years, and I contacted my old roommate and said, hey, me and my I was married at the time, and I said, me and my wife would like to come, meet you and your family. He had gotten married when he come back to Tokyo and finally moved back to his hometown of Niigata, where he purchased some land to start his own farm, which I thought was very interesting and exciting because, interestingly enough, the roots, of course, of the country is very agricultural. And so to come see his farm, meet his wife and his then 2 kids, he's now 3. And so he said, yeah, sure, it'll be great. I'll come show you around and, we'll have dinner. It would be fantastic. So he was a very good host, Sasuga, as usual, and so we took the Shinkansen, the Joetsu Shinkansen up from Tokyo to Niigata, and Koji, my roommate, my friend, and his wife, they met us there in his car, in his Toyota minivan, and we came back to his home, and we had some tea, and we talked for a little while, and then he finally said, well, how would you like to see the farm? And so I said, let's do it. So we all piled into his Toyota minivan. We started driving around the back of his farm. Yeah. And all of a sudden, he drove over a rock. And we heard a pop. A part of the vehicle sunk, and everyone knew we had blown a tire. And so there we were. We all got out, and we all stood around looking at the blown tire. And Koji looked at it for a while and thought, "All right, well, I guess that means we're going to have to change this tire." So it's getting dark by this point. Actually, we showed up, I think, in the afternoon, like 3:00 in the afternoon. Right. And then it started to be, we were there in October again. So the sun was setting about 5:30. And so, and it was starting to rain. So Koji's trying to get the old tire off, and I'm trying to read the Japanese manual to find out where the spare tire is. Meanwhile, my wife and his wife are standing on the side of the road looking at us, trying to figure out how to change the tire on the side of this vehicle. And I just remember looking at the two of them and seeing the two of us next to this vehicle. And I was looking around this farm going like, if somebody had told me that I would be thousands of miles away in another country, in a backcountry road, helping my friend change his spare tire.
I don't know how to change it. I don't know how to change a tire.
It was just so funny to me because both of them, my wife is American and African American, and his wife was Japanese. But both of them had the same crossed arm, disapproving looks on their face. They looked at the two of us going like, how did you guys manage to mess this up? Like they had the same face.
Yeah, where's the AAA, right? I thought, where's the AAA?
Right, they're just looking at us like, I can't believe they messed this up. Two different people from two different countries, the same thought. And I thought that was very, very funny. Wow. Very cartoon-like experience. So I'll never forget it.
Okay. So you went to the couple different cities in Japan. You mentioned as a couple cities, and then did you notice the culture difference between the beside the Tokyo's and all the other cities?
I certainly did. And I can't wait to come back because there's so many more cities that I'd like to visit. I'd like to see Fukuoka. I'm told the food there is amazing. It looks beautiful. And they have these awesome tourist trains. Sapporo, I want to go there in the summertime and go to their beach because it looks gorgeous. A lot of stuff out there looks gorgeous. And but I have been lucky enough to see, of course, I've been to Niigata, as I just mentioned. I've had an opportunity to visit Nagoya, where I had met a friend I had made recently who's also trying to learn English, and have been to Kyoto on a tour, and Osaka during my most recent visit. And I would say there's a certain kind of national identity, unity and unification. Like things are kind of the same no matter what city you go to, but the people are a little bit different. The food is also a little bit different. Nagoya turns out to be very proud of their chicken. It is delicious. I think it's great. But perhaps the easiest way for me to explain the difference between people in Japan, depending on the city, is to kind of compare them to Tokyo. There's differences in all the different towns. Nagoya feels like a very traditional town. They have like the more original, if you will, like Japanese feel. And in Kyoto, also, they're very curious people. They're very kind. Whenever they do somebody from another country, they stop you and ask you questions like, "Oh, hey, where are you from? What's going on?" Tokyo is very different from the other cities in my experience because they kind of remind me of in the American version of someone from Tokyo, someone from New York City. They kind of see themselves as like the best that America has to offer. They're the gold standard. And people and the Japanese that I've met from Tokyo, they tend to come across as though they see themselves as like the best of Japan. Like if you eat the food there, it's the best. Their hotels are the best. They're whatever they've got going on, it's the best that Japan has to offer. And where it kind of comes out a little bit is when I tell them that I want to live in Osaka. I'm like, I'm an American, and when I come live in Japan, I want to live in Osaka. And people from Tokyo always ask me, Osaka, why? Why Osaka? Like, because here's Tokyo, and every foreign person who comes to Japan, they want to live in Tokyo because Tokyo's the greatest. I have to explain, yes, Tokyo is wonderful, but there's a very big music culture in Osaka, and I'm a musician, so it makes a lot of sense for me to, use the recording studios there, perhaps perform at a live house in Osaka. Of course, I'll visit Tokyo. One of my best friends there lives in Ikebukuro. But yeah, they just are very surprised. They're like, oh, Osaka's so different. They've got that kind of, the very first thing they tell me is the dialect. They're like, the dialect is so different. It's so crazy. I'm like, okay, well, as someone who's learning Japanese as a foreigner, to me, it kind of sounds the same. It is different, very different, but it's not like, I don't know. I guess for someone from Tokyo, Kansai dialect is like when someone from Los Angeles listens to somebody from the South or the Midwest. The English sounds so different from somebody who was born and raised in Alabama versus. And so I guess for someone who grew up in Tokyo listening to NHK radio, they got to listen to somebody from the Tohoku area or from, the Kyushu area or whatnot. All of a sudden, it sounds a little bit different to them. And they probably think it's very strange and fascinating that an American could possibly think of wanting to live anywhere but Tokyo. It's very interesting.
Very interesting. It's all the stuff is you're talking about, and then I'd like to get some opinion about what is a significant difference between men and women in Japan compared with the U.S. women in Japan, U.S. men's.
Well, I would say that It's a very involved question because of the fact that in America anyway, the idea of which is very strange. I never would have seen this one coming when I was growing up. But as you might have become aware, the very concept of men and women is in flux. It's kind of evolving, if you will, in the United States, and the idea of femininity and masculinity and the connotation behind that here. There tend to be, unfortunately, for whatever reason now, negative overtones associated with that now, where, femininity may, for some, be regarded as a kind of a form of weakness, and, masculinity also having the negative connotation of, of ignorance, being ignorant and brutality is something that a person would be comfortable with if they are overly or overtly masculine. I don't believe any of that. I don't think that femininity is inherently weak or a form of weakness, and I don't think masculinity is all about brutality. I think it is. The easiest way to kind of explain it is to kind of visually imagine that age-old symbol, the yin-yang symbol, where you've got white and the black in the same circle with a little white and the black, little black and white. And what to me that represents is this balance. You can't have this whole thing without both. And to me, there's a balance that is very much so needed in life between the gentle and the firm or the strong. There's times where you need strength. There's time where you need aggression. There's time where you need to assert yourself, especially in a case of, let's say, self-defense. And you can see signs of that in both sexes. And so I personally don't think there's inherently anything inherently wrong with being ladylike or being like a gentleman. And so that's actually one of the things that I really, really love and appreciate about Japan, among the many other countless things, is that, America used to be this way, but in Japan there at least appears to still be a very strong idea in and around what a man is and what a woman is, even in the language. There's
I feel that way. There's America, United States, Canada, Australia. Those are young countries, right? You notice? It's like, I don't know, 250 years old, roughly 250 years old. But as Japan and Europe is just a tremendous lot of history over the cultures and peoples and all the stuff is 1,000 years. So I think we don't like to speed up everything, I think the changes is eventually come, but not in a hurry, because we learned from history and past. I think that's a little different too. But as I think I think a young country likes to click away, kind of like an instant answer. We need it, so that's I feel like.
I agree. I mean, it's very interesting that things change so much every 10 years here, and when you go, I once told an American friend of mine that fax machines are still very much so common in Japan. And they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe when I told them that. I said, yeah, they still using it. Like, why? And the fact that, they're trying to, because of the new coronavirus, they're, having to look at the fact that they've been a cashless society for so long. And now they're having, they're cash-based society, and now they're having to look at being cashless. Things like the requirement to use like the inko, the hanko stamp, the legally signed documents. Well, if you can't go to the office because you've got a telework, then how do you legally sign documents? And so this situation has had to force them to look at things that have been around for decades, perhaps even hundreds of years, that probably would not have changed yet, or no one would be talking about changing it for maybe another 10, 20, 50 years.
Yeah, that's another interesting point you mentioned. And here's my favorite question of the day. What is your favorite food? Japanese food, and maybe perhaps you like the Japanese drink, like alcohol maybe the soda. You know, yeah, tell me about the food and drink.
Well, first of all, I love the food in Japan so much. It's really hard to just pick one. But when I came back to Japan for this most recent time in late 2019, the very first thing that I wanted was curry rice. There's a place called Koko Ichibanya. Best curry I've ever had. And it was the hamburger curry rice is what I had. So I really enjoy that. But I also love katsudon. You got the fried chicken, cutlets on the rice base. It's absolutely amazing. And ramen, I'm a huge fan of. Tempura, especially the shrimp tempura, just absolutely amazing. Drinks that I have enjoyed there. I'm still looking for a I'll answer this question first, and then I'll ask a question too, because I can never get an answer to this. But I really enjoy Asahi Super Dry. It's the best beer I've ever had. Like I'm a huge fan of Michelob here in the United States, but Asahi Super Dry is absolutely delicious. And for non-alcoholic beverages, Coca-Cola makes a kind of Coke just for Japan called Apple Coke, and it is delicious.
Apple Coke. Oh, they like apple taste. I think I remember the apple Fanta. I mean, well, it is a Coca-Cola brand, and then the Fanta's got the grapes and the orange and the apple, I think, and then they're into the apple thing. So they have an apple Coke.
Yeah. And I bought it at the airport on my way back to Los Angeles. And I looked at the bottle and I said, they should sell this in the United States. Sure. I'm sure if you go to the Coca-Cola plant in Atlanta, you can buy it because they have all the Coke flavors that they make in the world. But it was very good. But my question, because when I went to I stayed in Kyoto, and in the restaurant that was in the hotel, they were serving like their own, like I guess the family that owned the hotel also owns like a distillery that makes their own sake. So I was like, well, we have to try this. And so I tried the sake, and it was good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. But I can't remember the name of it, and I think it was exclusive to that hotel. And so ever since then, every Japanese person that I have become friends with, I don't ask everyone, but if I know them, after a while I might ask them for a good recommendation for sake. And most of the people I've been talking to have not been able to recommend it. They like other things. They like highball, like the whiskey, or like Suntory whiskey, or something like that. But or heating beer. But I'm like, okay, well, what about Japanese stuff? Like, sake ga ii osusumi desu ka? They don't know. They don't have any recommendations. So I was wondering, do you have a favorite sake that you can remember enjoying?
I'm not a big drinker, actually. So that's impressive. The answer is, but my husband is very appreciative. I don't drink too much, so that he can save a lot of money. So just one drink per night. That's like my drink. But so that everything's got to be a little bit of sweet. So that nigori sake, like a milky kind of taste one, I like it because it's sweet. So I'm not really serious drinker. You can tell everything. It's just
Neither am I. One of my favorite mixed drinks is something called a White Russian, which is like, it's vodka with like Kahlua and milk. It's an extremely sweet.
Kahlua,
it tastes like
Kahlua is really sweet. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not a.
Yeah. So everything have to have the sort of sugar in it. So I'm not really the right person to ask what's this this sake serious question. So well, I'd like to find out your job. your job is I think I can tell the people is national television. The studio
Yes.
You're working with over the 25 years, right? So, yeah, please tell us about is what do you do, and then also music part of your the stuff is what's going on right now.
Yes, absolutely. So very briefly, yes, I've been a computer network engineer for quite a while. Speaking of being able to remember dates, I technically started my career with my first job at an internet service provider in El Segundo, California, on June the 26th, 1996. So I'm coming up on 25 years in the information technology business. And yes, I have worked for 3 TV networks, and including the one where I work now. My work primarily concerns what they call cloud computing architecture and design engineering. So anytime anybody goes to the website or the mobile app for this TV network's properties, they connect to servers that are ran in data centers all over the United States. And my job is to write the code of software that automates and manages all of the resources in these different data centers that provides the digital live streaming experience to our audience. Now, as far as the music side of things, I've been at that for even longer. I started learning to play the piano in September of 1986. And shortly before that, I picked up the guitar. The interesting thing is that I actually gave up music in 1992 to get into computers. I ran my own electronic bulletin board system. And the reason why was because I didn't feel like I was getting any better. I was not improving by that point after 1991. And so I decided, you know what, if I'm not going to get any better, I don't want to do this anymore. But then I heard the music from Disney's The Lion King. And in particular, Elton John's song, Can You Feel the Love?
Beautiful song.
Was actually on the radio. And yes, very, very good song. And I was able to hear all of the chords and notes and thought to myself, I think I can play this. And so I took my old Casio keyboard out of storage. It was actually a Kawaii keyboard. And I decided to learn how to play this song, and I did. And so I thought to myself, well, if I can play this, I can play anything. And so in 1994, I came back to being a musician and playing again, and obviously have been at it ever since. It was in August of 1995 that I started writing my own original songs. At least, again, I wrote one in 91 and then another one, I think, in 87. But I was actively writing songs starting the middle of 1995, which led to my first album called Eye of the Storm. I wrote all of the songs in between 1995 and 1997, but I didn't get a chance to release the album until 2010. I finally put it out in September of 2010, and then which would be the first of the first 3 albums that I put out with my band Starfire. I've been working on the business side for a few years, and then some life things have come up. But currently, I'm in the middle of finishing my 4th album, which I hope to release next year, which will be called Dreaming of Your Destiny, featuring my new lead singer, Mr. Jeff Flotz. Really proud of this new album that's coming out, and if I'm able to come back on your show, I would hope to be able to showcase a little bit of music at that point.
So I have one music question. So I mean, here's a question: I know you like the baseball, and then you like the baseball, the Dodgers and Angels, and my friend here, Larry Monkey here, Angels. I'm a big die-hard Angels fan, and then you like the Dodgers and the Angels. I just mentioned. If you're a baseball player, what is your walk-up song? You might people like to know what the walk-up song is. When the batter goes to the batting box at the bat, they pick the one song and then they just, self kind of fire their up, right? That's I should say. Fire you up there, get the energy from the song. And then the other day, I noticed, Oakland A's, Oakland A's, our enemy, they're in the first place. And the outfielder, his name is Kana. Kana's walk-up song is, did you know this? His walk-up song is Madonna, Like a Virgin. That's a very interesting pick. I like to have an interview with Mr. Kana. Why you pick up this as Like a Virgin, right? So I like to know your pick. The Mr. Lombard, the pick.
Well, that's very interesting. It's not Madonna, and I'm not sure how many people are even familiar with this song. But I would encourage somebody to go on YouTube and look it up and listen to it because it is awesome. I'm an 80s kid. I grew up in the 80s, big fan of 80s music. Obviously, Like a Virgin is an 80s song. But one of my all-time favorite movies is the Transformers, the movie. Not the 2007 Michael Bay film, although I love that movie too. It's the only one he did that I thought was really good. But the original animated Transformers movie that was produced in 1986, also, by the way, animated in Japan. And in it, a guy by the name of Vince DiCola, who I had a chance to meet actually not too long ago.
Oh, wow.
Really great guy and an insanely talented musician. And he scored the soundtrack for the film together with a then rather well-known rock guitar recording artist by the name of Stan Bush. And Stan Bush did two big songs for the movie. One was called The Touch, but the other song that they had done for the movie was called Dare. So the song is called Dare by Stan Bush for the Transformers, the movie from 1986. That would be my walk-up song for two reasons. One, it sounds really good. It's very powerful sounding.
That's we have to have,
heroic,
yes. Powerful sounding, yes.
The coincidence that the name of the song rhymes with the first part of my first name is not lost on me. So it's almost like they're saying dare to me.
That's perfect. It feels like you can hit the grand slam, right?
That's exactly what I would do if I heard that song.
Grand slam versus Like a Virgin is probably the bunting or something. I don't know.
I hope.
So, yeah. That's great. So anyway, so they're talking about us as a Starfire. So I like to play the video here, and so the people, my audience, can enjoy your music here. So that okay, bear with me. Here's the technology involving, so I'm a little slow, but I'm doing it. Okay, here we go. Daren さん did a capture. There we go. And then
So that's the intro to the first track on my second CD called Business Affairs. I brought
okay,
my own
and then
copy.
I like
I'll
to
hold it up to this.
introduce the how to purchase things from this is the you can see it as the Amazon. So the Infinite Grace, that's the first one, and then those are all the other the songs you can purchase. And then also, and then Daren-san's doing is the Twitter thing,
Right.
I think. And this is hold on. So that's I want to introduce just a click away IchibanTalk. I like to do that. I would have put all the link. He pay attention with all the Japanese news too, and all the Japanese scene. This is Nakayama Miho-san, and then all the Matsuda Seiko-san's, all the Japanese princess, all the stuff that he's the following, and then the tweeting. So there's you might want to check this out. So, well, thank you very much for all the stuff you are talking about today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and then, well, maybe talk to you later. Thank you.
Absolutely. I hope to be back again someday.
Okay. Bye-bye.